It is a speechless celebration, everybody, today. We are going to be live here on the radio. I've got some fun things planned, and do not worry, you're going to have a chance to call in and tell me everything you love about me. Yeah, that's what I want to hear. No, but we're also going to have the debate that I started last week about Trump and everything and how conservative really is he. Oh, there goes my camera. We got guests and everything. We will have a good show. I promise you. So excited for everything, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're watching Speechless. And we are about to be live here on the radio. My camera's still not great, guys. I'm working on it. Don't worry. Yeah, you guys just got a great view of my sunburn there. It's beautiful, isn't it? All right, we're gonna get live here on the radio right now. Hey, Bloomington Normal. Great to be talking to you guys today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student out of Central Illinois, attendee of Illinois State University. And gosh darn, while the age has changed, pretty much everything has stayed the same for the last few years. Yes, tomorrow, September 25th, marks the 2-year anniversary of this show on Cities 92.9, Speechless. It's a beautiful, amazing show that I am so happy I've been able to help host for 2 years. And we're going to go through a lot of where this show came from, what it's doing now, and where it's going. But I'm going to need some help with that, especially in terms of where it came from. And so I got some guests to introduce to everybody right about now. First off is my good friend, and you just heard him for the last 2 hours, David Paul Blumenshine. How's it going, David?
I thought that was going to be Josh Bender, but I'm sorry. You said my good friend, and I was like, whoa, I'm on the stage. Okay, go ahead. Don't mean to preempt our next guest.
No, it's all good. But that's David Paul Blumenshine for everybody. You all know him. But for the next guy, you know him. You love him. The former talent at Cities and formerly talented Josh Bender. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, buddy. Hey, David. How you doing? Yeah, I thought when he said good friend, it was going to be me, but apparently you're his good friend now. So,
I'm just his Uber driver. Josh. I good friend. Yeah, that too, I guess.
Well,
I guess so.
We got this all-star panel here because since Speechless is turning 2, and while I am now the main host and the beauty, the talent of the show, it was
the sunburnt talent of the show.
Yes,
yeah,
I am
a little
sunburnt.
bit.
Well, it's the Irish in me, I'm just I burn literally no matter what, and I'm pretty pale. You can always see that, but we got a lot to talk about here today, guys, because I think that this show has become quite the beacon, despite its title, for speech and for free speech.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be able to reflect. I think reflection is one of the most important things to do. I'm constantly reflecting on not only triumphs, but mistakes as well. And so I figured that who better to reflect with than the people that helped start it all. So David Paul Blumenshine, for those that do not know, from your perspective, where did this show come from?
Well, I mean, obviously, you guys were very involved with the college Republicans and Turning Point USA on campus. You attended multiple events throughout McLean County while you were attending school. Obviously, Kevin, you still are. Josh has graduated and moved on to a professional career in teaching, and I'm sure his students are better for that because he is one of my favorite people out there in the world. But you two really stood out, and I knew that you were doing something, which you guys had a podcast, which is I'm trying
Civil discourse.
Yep. And I said, hey, join me on the DPB show. You guys came into studio. It was a taped version of my DPB show, and you guys nailed it. I mean, I as a host sat back and listened to two young people really hash out at a level that is not necessarily my pace, but probably your audience's pace. And I went right over to the corner office. I told our general manager at the time, you got to give these guys a space on the radio. She said, I agree. It started out as an hour. Speechless did. It was you
On
and
Saturdays.
on Sat
Yeah.
on Sa- and it
our
was on
Saturdays.
Saturdays. And it was on Saturdays. So you guys started there. I actually used to listen a little bit more when you're on Saturdays. Obviously, coming out of studio from 1 to 3, I catch the beginning, and then Kev, I got to go take a nap.
I get it.
As I did after that first show that you guys did with me, I literally had to go and sit down because you guys have a unique way. Your generation, I'm sure, is used to that. Ben Shapiro kind of has that same tempo where you guys cover a lot. I'm more of the slow down to go fast. I'm very deliberate in my speech patterns, and I think it takes all types around the world. So that's kind of what led to it. You guys started out on Saturdays, then moved to Sundays, and then Josh graduated, and you kept on with another guest host, Eduardo,
Eddie, for quite a while.
The Mexican Missile. And then you expanded to 2 hours because I don't think that you truly could get everything accomplished that you were trying to in 1 hour. So that's my perspective of what happened. I obviously will plead the fifth to everything.
Josh, what do you think, man? So this show started, like, give everybody, because I've talked about where the show came from a little bit.
Right.
Be like, how do you? Because it's more recently, I'll have people I've met through YouTube and the things I've done there, and they'll be like, how do you have a radio show? You're just some dumb kid that college degree at. And I tell the story a little bit, but from your perspective, Josh, where did this show come from?
I mean, I think this show kind of came from just COVID and the lockdowns. And, I remember, Kev, you were working overnights at Jewel as a deli boy. I had a bad sleep schedule, so I was up until about 3 in the morning. Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
I like deli boy better.
I like deli boy. I think it's better.
Meat manager, no.
Kev, the meat manager, yeah. But I remember we just talked every night. We would just talk on the phone for a couple hours, and I'm like, why don't we record this? Like, why? Maybe no one will listen to us, but why not? And we did a couple times, and I remember, the show was great. I love doing civil discourse, but I remember, David, you approached us. I don't exactly remember when, but you said, hey, you should come on the radio, come on our show. And I remember, I speak for myself here, but I think Kevin and me both can agree here. I was nervous and terrified to go on because that was a whole new media for me all of a sudden. And all of a sudden we're on this radio, and it was a blast. And I'll never forget when you talked about maybe giving us a show. We came into the studio just to talk about it. And by the time we left, you had already posted pictures saying, hey, this new show is being made. And I'll never forget, my mom, who I think is watching right now, was like, I didn't know you had a show. I go, I didn't know we had a show until about 10 minutes ago. So, but I loved it. And I was so happy. I remember trying to manage, doing the show because I was working at the time in school, but it was so much fun. And David, I got to thank you just for giving us a chance and really taking a risk on a couple college idiots, because that's what we were. And that's what we still are. I know I'm done with college, but I truly am just still a college idiot at heart. And really, thank you for just taking a chance on us.
Well, the ability to understand and navigate, you guys have a insatiable way about you of wanting to be better and ultimately building a bench. You guys are the future. I don't even pretend, because it's not me. It's not my generation. It sure isn't even the generation that's following me. You're going to be strapped with everything that is taking place right now in government, and not only in government, in the public school system and beyond. You guys will have all of that weight as these decisions are being made. And I do believe that the best is yet to come. And I believe we're coming through a storm, and we're going to come out of it. And you guys are going to be set up, especially in light of what you've managed to do with the show here at Speechless. And of course, your career as a teacher, there's no greater cause than to teach and mold young minds. So you guys are set. I just feel so. It's kind of like, a parent, when your children are going off. I feel parental in this case, because finding young people who want to engage in civil discourse and want to be better and want to help others be better, that's what I constantly seek out. You guys filled that role.
Well, and that's like the biggest thing. And I echo the thanks Josh says for the radio show, but also just the tenacity you have in building that bench, David, because there's been so many times I've been in politics in some way or another since I was like 15. I was working with a lot of local politicians back in my hometown in Naperville, working on different campaigns, learning the ropes a little bit. And there'd be a lot of times where I would go to different events. People would invite me to events, and they would always have kind of, they'd have a smile on their face, but I was always just like a token to them. They'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, we want to hear your ideas. We want you to be involved. But in reality, I was always just the token young person they could bring to events. As you're a person, David, where heck, again, having young people as young as Josh and I were and still are, being able to have such a platform on a local radio station, and being able to build that platform, and you having the faith in us to say, I think you guys could handle at least an hour a week on this channel to bring news from a different perspective, to bring what's going on in society from a different perspective, means a lot, because it wasn't just a smile and a tokenism of any kind. I mean, there's content to what we say, and there's heart to it, and there's a lot more than just I'm going to bring you to this one event as to show that I have young people that like me.
Yeah, it saddens me that there are adults out there who don't act like adults when it comes to mentoring and guiding and leading young people, to use them as a pawn rather than as a purpose. I mean, you guys truly, you are the kings and the queens in the future. You're not the pawns. I mean, I always look at the analogy I use as Star Wars and Luke Skywalker, because what we're facing in this world, now you might have missed my show, Josh, but there's nothing new under the sun. We understand that the Dark Ages, the Civil War, I mean, things have happened in society around the world that are horrific. We here in the United States are, we're constantly working at forming a more perfect union. And part of forming a more perfect union means sometimes you slip far to the left, sometimes you swing back to the right, but eventually people, and then that's what it's about, gather around and say, hey guys, let's look at this. Let's come together. Let's find plausible solutions to the world's problems, and specifically the problems that are most immediate in our own communities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And while we've talked a lot, and we will continue to talk about where Speechless has come from, I do have to make a note of where we are now. Currently, we are not only on the radio, but we are also on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, where you can go like, subscribe, share, and comment. And I see we're already getting some comments. We always try to address those during the break. Let's light up that chat. Talk about what your guys' favorite Speechless moments have been. Maybe your least favorite. Maybe you hate me. That's perfectly fine. You can talk about those in the comments, or you can text or call in at 309-451-9299. And another great thing about where we have come from on where we have come to on Speechless, is that we now have a sponsor. We have had a sponsor for a little bit, especially since we've gone digital, and that is Paul Garcia Productions out of Central Illinois. Paul Garcia Productions does amazing video work for local businesses, local government. If you need anything in terms of visual effects for your business, your local business, do not hesitate to check out Paul Garcia Productions today out of Central Illinois, where if you want your business to get more business, Paul Garcia Productions will help you with that. But as we talk more about where Speechless has come from, it makes me reflect on some of my fondest memories of this show, back when we had 3 hosts crammed into a studio on a Saturday afternoon, or we were pre-recording shows as well. I gotta say, Josh, I can't think. I don't think there's been more than 3-4 times where I've missed a week, or where we have missed a week. I think almost every single time we at least have a pre-recorded show. And I think that's great to say, because I know that other show hosts, not to bash them, they do great work when they are in, but I know that there's a lot of people, a lot of show hosts that do best subs and stuff. And we don't really do that here on Speechless. And I think that's great, which means that there's a lot of content for us to dissect. Josh, what has your favorite show of ours been that we've done?
Oh man, we've done so many. I really like the one. So I think it was your first one. It was like from a teacher's perspective, when we talked about
on the digital
about school shootings, and just what teachers are saying, and me being a teacher was able to share my perspective. I think that was really fun. The debate one we did just a couple weeks ago was super fun. I think those are always fun.
That live stream.
Yeah, I mean, I came out, I was like, yeah, we'll do 2 hours. We did 4?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
I was in studio till like midnight that night. It
Yeah,
was
I think,
crazy.
and I had
That
to get
sounds
up
like Ty Smith.
yeah, I mean, and I got up
Started
the
out
next
doing
day
2,
and
ended up doing 6.
yeah, and I was like, guess I gotta go, I had to go to bed and get up and go to school the next day and, go to work. But I think those were super fun. God, I mean, I went back and listened to our first episode.
Oh God.
It's so bad.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure it was.
it's so funny. But it was cool because I could hear the hope that we had. And I think kind of where the show is at now is exactly what we expect, or what we hoped but never expected. And I think that was really cool. It's really cool to see.
Absolutely. DPB, I know that you said it's sometimes hard to catch full shows. Favorite speechless moments you might remember over the 2 years that we've now been on air?
Sometimes, and not everyone's good at interviews. I think you do a amazing job. I'm not an interviewer. I just had one on my show with Chris Balkema, candidate for state senate. Not everybody's gifted that way. I've had a lot of guests. I just did the math. That's 104 Sundays or / Saturdays. So 104 episodes in a 2-year period of time, and to miss just a handful of those by doing recorded, that's pretty impressive. But I think by all means, it would be some of the interviews. I'll think about it, and maybe on the other side of break, I can come up with a specific one.
Will do. Yes, we do have to take a break, everybody, but we are still going to be live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble. And don't worry, I know that a lot of you guys tune in for the current events. We will be getting into current events, but I always say, especially on my YouTube channel, that there's some videos I make for me and some videos I make for the audience. Well, I can tell you this show is definitely one that's a little bit more for me, DPB, and Josh, because it's reflection. And I think that's important. But there is stuff to be learned from an audience perspective. Think about it. Look, as Josh just said, we've been doing this show for 2 years, or at least I have. We have obviously have had Josh in and out. We've been doing this for 2 years, and he listened to our first episode, and it wasn't that great. It's like working out. You're not going to see change. You're not going to see anybody getting better. Anything that you've done in life, they say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert in something. And right now, I'm only at maybe a few hundred of them in terms of hosting a radio show. But I'm on my way, and you can already hear that I've gotten better. And so just like working out, just like working on learning an instrument, learning a language, anything like that, there's something to be learned from reflecting on our time. It's been 2 years, and I think one of the biggest thank yous I have to shout out is for you, the audience, those that have stuck with me that long, whether you're from that long ago or you're brand new. Stick with us, everybody, because we got more Speechless coming up, and we'll be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Oh, and we are still live, obviously, here on YouTube, Facebook, everything like that, guys. I want to give a big shout out to Josh, because for anybody who's watching, you probably saw the thumbnail and might have noticed it looks a little bit different than some of the other thumbnails.
Yeah, that was all me.
And so I asked Josh to make the thumbnail.
Good job, Josh.
Thank you.
He made the thumbnail.
Kev, do you know what?
That.
I have so much respect for you, because that took me 30 minutes. I just laid in bed for 30 minutes trying to figure this thing out. Like, it took so long.
A lot of people. So I had a call with a friend of mine. She's does a lot of work with in Northern Illinois, and further north in Illinois. Babette is her name. And she does, and she does a lot of work in terms of marketing for politics and for digital creation and everything like that. And she looked at my channel one day and she was like, wow, whoever your like marketing person, like they got you like really good. And I go, I do all of it. Like she had no idea. Like I do every graphic you see, everything besides the one Josh just made. I do all of that. That is all me.
And I'm pretty sure you had me do it. You were like, I want to see what you can do. Let's be honest here. You read a baseball game and you just didn't want to do it. So you had me do it.
Football game, but
whatever it was.
That's exactly
whatever
what
it was. Hey, Kev, I hear the camera adds 10 pounds. I didn't know it adds redness to the skin.
You're so funny. You're so funny.
I have one compound word to say to you, Kevin Phares. Sunscreen.
I wear sunscreen sometimes, and I still burn.
Sometimes.
Jeez Louise.
Hey, Ken, I have SPF 90. Do you want it?
That's right.
Oh my God. You guys are mean.
This is the roasting portion of this useless show.
I didn't know it was crap on Kevin Day.
I noticed Ryan McKenzie down in the chat.
Yes, let's get to some of these chats.
But Ryan's got a good one.
Kev, your interviews have been great, and I love the ISU live stream one. Yeah, thank you, man. That was a good one. I know we had a live stream from the debate that we did on campus. I'm going to get another one of those when we have our next debate between college Republicans, college Democrats. and that'll be a good one. I know interviews, man. I've always loved doing them. For me, a peak, one of my favorite, and I'll talk about this in the next segment, was my Riley Gaines interview. That was such an honor.
Yeah, see, you gave me that one. But the other most pivotal moment that really sticks out with me is when Sonny Garcia shouted "Hail Satan" in your face. That was classic.
He shouted,
I mean, not everybody gets an opportunity to have at the DeSantis dinner.
I will say
night.
the video of you from Peoria has to be one of my favorites as well. I think I've watched it maybe 4 or 5 times because it's just, I think I'm so impressed how calm you are. I mean, that's one of my big things, but just the reactions. I know like Kent, our friend Kent, he watched it. He was like, that was someone that just said, wow, Kev is phenomenal at this. And I want to make sure you know that too.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
It was such a good video.
All right. Well, I appreciate the praise after all the roasting that I just got. But we do.
That's how roasting works.
We do have to come back on air, though.
Back on air.
And we are back with Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student out of Central Illinois. You think I wouldn't stumble on that, but even after 2 years, I still do. And we are back here not only on the radio, but you can also check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble. And if you're on any of those, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, comment what you think. I'm reading these comments. I love to see it. And we are here today celebrating 2 years of Speechless. Ooh, this show has been, I just hit my mic a little bit, 2 years of Speechless. We have been on the air on Cities 92.9 now for 2 years, and it's evolved, it's changed. And that's why I got some friends here in studio to recap a lot of that with me. My good friend DPB.
Right here, DPB.
And obviously one of my best friends from college and for life, Josh Bender.
Hello.
Who was spending time with a girl earlier today, so he wasn't able to help show prep. Yes, I'm going to call you out for that.
I show prepped.
But we don't need much of it because for part of this show, we're going through some of the best of Speechless kind of ideas. This is not a best of show. We are live in studio, and you can call in or text in at 309-451-9299. I'd love to hear from you guys because I always love hearing from the people that make this show possible. If it were not for the people that were listening, that tune in on my Sundays, what used to be Saturdays, for 2 hours now, 3 to 5, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. And so biggest thanks to each and every one of you. The celebration is not only for the show and the work that I and many others have put into it, but also for those that have continuously listened and supported it. Thank you so much. But we were talking in the last segment about just some favorite memories and everything. And we talked about some interviews. And one I want to talk about, this is probably one of the highlights I had, just came a few months ago, which was my interview with Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines, if you guys missed any of that interview, do not worry. It is on my YouTube channel, Speeches with Kev Phares. I interviewed the prolific swimmer who swam against Leah Thomas and actually tied with Leah Thomas at the 2022 Women's NCAA Championship in the 500 freestyle. And it was just such a dynamic interview. She was so kind. And you meet a lot of, I've been in politics for quite a while. I've met a lot of people that hold a lot of power and a lot of people that think they hold a lot of power, but don't. And you meet so many people that seem to have this very big air about them and think so highly of themselves. And Riley Gaines has come to a significant amount of notoriety, and yet still is one of the, both on camera and off, one of the most down-to-earth people I have ever met. And the fight that she is having is so pivotal to the future of our republic. And the idea of defending not only women in women's spaces, but also defending fundamental truth. The idea that men are men, women are women, and you cannot change that. Because as soon as we start changing definitions, we start changing speech, we start changing the words we say to mean something completely different, it will not only cause confusion, but it will cause destruction. You want to know where I learned that? The place that I learned that is from a book that is actually the inspiration for the title of this show. A lot of people ask me, why is your show called Speechless? And I know I've been talking for this whole segment, but I still got my guess. We're going to stick with them. But the title of this show, everybody, if you did not know, Speechless, came because I was told that we were starting a radio show, me and my buddies, and we needed a title. And the last book I had just finished reading was Speechless by Michael Knowles. Speechless, Controlling Hearts, Controlling Minds. I recommend everybody read that. And in the next segment, at the beginning of the next segment, I'm going to lay out, I actually got a chance to meet Michael Knowles back in 2022. And if you never heard this story, you're going to want to hear it because I actually got to tell him that I had a radio show based off of his book. And you're going to love to hear what he had to say about that. But we're going to talk about it in the next segment, everybody. God bless you. God bless America. We'll be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Sorry, I kind of took over that entire...
It's a shorter segment. You're good.
Yeah, that was a very short one.
And you know what? When you were saying that about Riley Gaines' plight that is pivotal to the future of our country, have you heard Mark Robinson at the church where he talks about the fact that you can go down and you can get made up, you can get dressed up, and you can get drugged up, but that ain't going to change who you are. God created you man or woman. It does. And it's so fascinating because I understand as somebody in psychology, and that's my undergrad studies at ISU, that what we used to call gender dysphoria is not called gender dysphoria anymore. In fact, they've tried to take that out. It's funny how the many different ailments, and they're not ailments, I guess they call them something else from a psychological perspective, but how many of those different maladies have now been removed from the diagnostic statistic manual, that they don't exist anymore? I mean, that's, to me, when you start removing things, there's still something going on. Once again, my heart goes out to anybody that's struggling with gender dysphoria or any of those issues. But at the end of the day, if Riley Gaines, I believe, is going to prevail, women's spaces should be protected.
Absolutely. Josh, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, watching that Riley Gaines interview, I was blown away just how, I think it was one thing that really stuck to her, or that stuck with me, is when she said, this was never my intention. I never wanted to do this, but I felt called to do it. I really like that, because that's kind of, I understand that so much. I think there's so many times where, especially with teaching, there's days I walk out, I'm like, why am I here? I like last Tuesday, I had the worst day I've had, and probably my last, probably not this year, probably all of last year, just the worst day. I just had to yell at my kids all day. They're just horrible. I was just like, what am I doing? Why am I here? Yeah. And then the very next day I had a nice conversation with a student who just made it clear that basically they're just going to, they want to graduate because of my class. And I was like, and right there, it was like that was what I needed to hear, and that was just it was just reminded to me of why I do what I do. I really resonated with that interview and that part of the interview and Riley. And I love that she said that. And it spoke a lot to me. And actually we listened to it on the way back to Nevada. We were driving back.
Yeah.
Cause I never watched it before. And I was like, oh, I could turn it on. So we turned it on in the car. So we were all listening to it.
Human reactions and human interactions and the way that we relationally deal with one another, that's always going to be, you got what, 45 years of teaching, and now you're in year number 2.
Yeah.
Well, good luck on that one. I couldn't imagine it.
45 years to get to tenured.
Yeah. Well, DPB,
are you cutting me loose, hopefully?
Well, I figured you'd probably want to. I didn't want to be like rude about it, but I figured you were on the air for 2 hours.
It says remove under Josh's name, so I was like, boy, he didn't even put remove
under
mine.
That's something with the. That's something with
the tech. In China, they deface you. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I just wanted. Was there any last words you wanted to say? Because I figured you've been on the air for 2 hours today already.
I do need a nap. So. I also worked overtime last night until 11 at Desi's for a wedding. That was very mellow, but it was still. It's way past DPB's bedtime. I'm 8:30, not 11:30. So I've been up already in this morning. I went and sang in praise and worship band, and then came here. So I'm going home. I'm not even going to watch the Bears game, but it is 0-0. But not
Bears, for long.
Bears are losing. But it was good to be with you guys. Josh, you look great. What's that on your shirt?
It's it's a victory shirt. So it's from the Churchill War Rooms. I got to go there in London, and so
that's when on your London trip.
I
was on your London trip with you vicariously.
I made sure to post and keep everyone updated.
All right,
Absolutely.
guys. Peace be with you. You guys are awesome. Thanks a lot. We'll
Thank
see
you,
you soon.
DPB.
Thank you, David.
God bless you. Everybody go subscribe to the David Paul Blumenshine Show. It is on YouTube. I put the link in the comments so everybody can go find that there. He goes live on Sundays from 1 to 3 right before my show, but he also does TikTok reaction videos, and those are a lot of fun. I titled those.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you, DPB. Thank you. Thank you, man. He does TikTok reaction videos, everybody, and I call him Boomer Reacts to TikToks.
I did notice that. I was like, that's so
Boomer
mean.
reacts to TikToks.
That's so mean.
Well, it's people when they say DPB or they hear DPB reacts to TikToks, they're like, "Who's DPB?" But
Yeah,
they see Boomer and they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it. I get that. That makes sense."
I get it. No, I get it. I just saw that. I was like, oh, what a rude thing.
Man, and you're I see so many people in the comments. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're about to go live back on the radio. We got some other things to talk about with Speechless, and then we're also going to get into some what was I going to say? Current events. Sorry, my mind goes blank sometimes, but we are still here and I'm still alive. I'm still breathing, everybody. So let's get right back into it. And we are back with Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student out of Central Illinois. And we are celebrating here today because it is the second anniversary of this show airing on Cities 92.9 on the radio station. Many of you might have not started following this show until you started watching it on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, anything like that. God bless you guys for finding this show and finding me and supporting me. I really do appreciate that. But for those of you that have been listening on the radio or on the podcast on Spotify and everything like that for 2+ years, thank you as well. Again, as I've said before today and in the past, if it were not for you guys, I wouldn't still be here, because here's the thing is if people didn't listen, then that would mean that nobody likes me and that it's not worth doing any of this. But you still listen, which means that somebody likes me out there. And I really do appreciate that. I got my good friend Josh Bender, who was a former show host, formerly talented, with me today to celebrate. We're going to get into some current events as we always do, but I was ending out the last segment talking about how the name of the show came from me reading the book by Michael Knowles, Speechless: Controlling Hearts, Controlling Minds, and the message of it really resonating with me. A lot of that book focusing significantly on how the left changes definitions. Think about it, guys, how at one point racism didn't mean an opinion I don't like. It used to actually meant racism. It used to mean being prejudiced based on race, but no longer means that. Man used to mean an adult male who has XY chromosomes. Nowadays, it means anybody who feels like taking hormones to grow a beard. But everything's changed. And I actually got a chance to meet Michael Knowles and tell him what an influence his book had on me. And I told him that I started a radio show. And many people have asked me, they go, do you think if Michael Knowles found out that he'd be mad or he'd try to sue for copyright infringement or something like that? No. Michael Knowles thought it was one of the coolest things in the world. And I was so happy to be able to tell him. I met him back in December of 2022 at America Fest, a Turning Point USA event. And I met him in a brief meet and greet. And I was just like, man. And so I've been in touch a little bit with one of his managers and talking to her about potentially getting him on the show at some point. Obviously still not there yet, but it's something that I have been working on. And I was so honored to be able to meet Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire and tell him what an influence he has had on me. I know we have some current events we're going to get to, and I want to, and don't worry guys, those call lines are open at 309-451-9299. You can join the show with anything that we're talking about here today. But I do want to go over just a few other highlights from doing this show. So obviously I started back in March, basically April, doing the streams and everything, getting onto YouTube, and I've grown such a phenomenal following of amazing people who tune in every week to watch this show, and I appreciate each and every one of you. But there were things that we did on this show even before I had YouTube and all that stuff. Like one that I think is always fun to bring up is at one point on this show, pretty soon after its inception,
I think I know what you're gonna.
Each and every one of us, me, Josh, and Eduardo, brought in our girlfriends at the time.
Yeah.
And we talked, and it was, I think it might have been around Valentine's Day-ish. Maybe.
No, it was like October.
Oh, maybe. Oh, yeah, because we talked about it because it was Halloween and I brought up some like lovey horror movie or something.
Yeah.
But we brought in all of our girlfriends for the time, and it was a packed studio. We were in this little studio that has 3 microphones total, and we had 6 people
6 of us
trying to talk on radio. We were told later that it was one of the worst radio decisions ever made because no one can follow 6 people only by audio.
Well, and I think the thing was too, it was so early on that no one knew who we were. Like they couldn't differentiate our voices enough already. And,
and 2 years later, none of us are in those relationships anymore. Some of us have gone through entirely other relationships that are now over in that time. And it's so interesting to think back about, and there's so much that I've learned about. I've always loved having Josh on because obviously there was a big song that went viral recently, Rich Men North of Richmond. And a lot of people are focusing on the lines in it. They are great lines, but like, I wish politicians would look out for minors, not just minors on an island somewhere. They're also focusing on if you're 5'3" and 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. And I love those lines. But the one really that resonates with me so much is young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground.
Yeah.
Because all this dang country does is keep on kicking them down. And that's one thing that I've always loved having conversations about with Josh and in studio with just having the young, because we always talk about how we have a young conservative perspective, a college conservative perspective, but it's not just about being a college conservative. The young male perspective is really fascinating because the generation that we've grown up in, speak a little bit about to it, Josh, how it feels to be a young man nowadays in this world.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think we've had these conversations about just how terrible it feels at times, you know, and how, I mean, for a couple of years there, every single thing in the world was our fault. And yeah, there's just the being kicked down. And, you know, I will say there's been a shift I've noticed recently of people really noticing it because, I mean, we want to talk about the crisis of young men and just how in danger they are. I mean, we see that the young male suicide rate increased by like what? I think it was like 50%, 100% over the last couple of years. Around there. And I mean, and that line resonates with me a lot too, because it's like, you know, I mean, obviously I love my job, I love what I do, but I do know plenty of men, especially, who just go work a job just to pay bills and then they hate it, you know, and they're just so miserable. And so I always like to kind of being able to share a young male perspective when at a time when it was always attacked a lot. I mean, it was always tough at times, but I think it was always fun.
Absolutely. And I know we did a show at one point about men's mental health and everything. Yeah. It's so overlooked. And how are men supposed to navigate through society nowadays? Not only in the way of it seems like everybody demonizes men, not just men and white men, especially, which both of us are red right now because I got sunburned. But but it's not. It's oftentimes overlooked. It's seen as there was a fight briefly for, well, men need to be able to show emotion and everything. But then as soon as they start showing emotion, it's, well, now men are too emotional. We're pulled in every which way. We're pulled in every direction to the point of which we don't even know which way is up anymore.
Right.
And so the young male perspective, like I said, is often overlooked. Everybody is always believe all women and we need to listen to women. And obviously those movements have whatever merit that they do. But it does not mean by any means that we should be ignoring young men like I feel so much of society has. And so I think that's a great thing that Speechless has been able to provide as an outlet for young men to voice their opinions on political matters, but also on the social. And so while I bring this full circle, we had this episode where we brought on all of our girlfriends. We look back on it and kind of laugh because obviously at the time we were young and in love and, oh my gosh, we could have gotten married and all that stuff. And that's not the way it worked out.
Right.
But now that we look back on that, Josh, I think it'd be important. And I think it'd be cool to be able to say the kinds of things we've learned about ourselves. Like dating in this generation is really interesting. And so what kinds of things in terms of what you're looking for in a relationship, in a future partner, what kinds of things have you learned about yourself in the 2 years since coming out of that relationship? Really being, I mean, you've pretty much been single that entire time.
Yeah.
You have some prospects from what I hear, but what have you learned? What have you thought about?
Jeez,
where have you been?
Wow. Well, I think so I went through an extra little thing too, because I moved. I took a huge move, and I think that adds a lot to what I'm looking for. I don't know. Jeez, you blindsided me a bit here. I
Things
guess
just come to me, Josh.
I know. I like
come
it.
to
No,
me.
I like it. I like
Let's
it.
go.
I would say more just someone who I can get along with, who likes, they don't have to like everything I like, but at least appreciates what I like and doesn't like bash it. I think that's always a good
Mhm.
thing. Someone who's just willing to spend some time with me, especially because I do get really busy with my job. I mean, just being able to just understand, hey, I might need to work, but we could just be in the same room together. While just that helps a lot. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess biggest thing is just slow it down.
Yeah.
Slow it down. Don't be so head in the clouds. Like, take it back down to earth a little bit. And that's been I think over the last 2 years in general, I've gotten more grounded in reality, and
Mhm.
I think that's been a nice thing, especially with my job, and understanding that I need to adjust some things because my idealism meets my realism, and they clash a lot. So I got to be able to readjust. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Well, that's great. And again, that's what I think is so important about doing this, about going and I'll be vulnerable too for a moment after I not vulnerable for a second. Because but it's so important to reflect. And while we're doing it right here, I ask everybody out there to also reflect and think about where you've been. And when you hit a milestone, like right now, we're at 2 years of Speechless being on air on the radio. That's a big milestone. And to
Yeah.
reflect on where we've come from and not only where the show is gone, but where we have as well and what we've done and what we've learned. And so as I talk about relationships, I had gotten out of that relationship that I was in when we did that show just a few months after that show aired. And then I got into another relationship a few months after, and that ended just a few months ago. And really what I've learned thinking about it is that there's a lot of things in my life um, that I've not coped with. Period. Like,
Yeah.
that I have needed to learn how to. That for so long I adopted very much of a attempted a stoic approach on dealing with loss and not just a lot of death in my life, but also just loss of maybe a friend in a friendship and moving through life, having things change and learning how to cope with that. And I know that's very vague, but that's because I'm not a
Well,
particularly vulnerable person.
yeah. Well, and
Um,
I was saying, I think it's interesting too, because we went through the loss of a friend kind of together.
mhm.
And I think we both handled it very differently. And I think it speaks to how we are, because you were very, whatever, just is what it is. There was a lot of anger there
There's
where
a
I
lot
was,
more expletives that I said that, but they're not
yeah, yeah,
FCC approved.
right. But
Yeah.
I was a lot more, I guess, just, I don't want to say understanding, but I was understanding of it. I was more like, you know what, this is the way I'm analyzing it more. I was more analytical with it, and my perspective was, this isn't my fault. If it's not my fault, why should I be angry?
Absolutely.
And I think that's really interesting that you brought that up, because we both went through that together. I think that
Yeah.
was really,
And
really
so
fascinating.
there was that. And so my point being is, what have I learned? I've learned that there's different things I need to look for when it comes to finding a partner in terms of love. There's different things I need to look for when selecting certain friends. And there's things that I need to also reflect on with myself. I've talked a lot on this show about how a few months ago, around the time that I'd gotten out of my last relationship, I had made the decision to begin losing weight. I've lost almost 40 pounds in about
Yeah.
5 months. I've been working out consistently, and it's because I decided to make that change because I had a change in mindset and then I changed my actions. And that's really one thing I really learned how to do is how much control I genuinely do have over the issues in my life, the problems I am having. And I know a lot of recently, if you've tuned in the last few weeks, I end my last segment of my first hour with a little bit more of a motivational speech. And so I'm going to build off that, which I've told that story obviously multiple times on this show, but I'm going to build off of it because I had some different thoughts on some ways to consider how you can change that mindset and turn it into action. And so we're going to cover that in the next segment. And in this break, everybody, if you're listening on the radio, obviously patronize our sponsors. They do amazing work by supporting our messages here, allowing us to have a voice. So please, please, please check them out. But we're also going to stay into the comments section of Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, for which you can check us out on each and every one of those if you would like. Don't do it while you're driving, though. That might be a little unsafe. But we'll be right back with some motivation and more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. And we are now live, obviously, on all the streaming. Thank you guys for tuning in, sticking with us. God bless you. God bless America. We got Jim. Great to see you. I saw
Hey,
some of
Jim.
my other friends earlier. We got Raj. Great to see you. Sita, Mad Mads, Ryan Mack, if you're still watching, Oklahoma Chicken Cam, one of my favorites, Oklahoma Chicken Cam license. I hope you're still in there. Let's get this chat going. We are going in the second hour. Last week, I started a big uproar because at the very end of my show, it was almost a cut for time segment, but instead I ended up putting it into the show. I started a big uproar because I insulted Trump a little bit. I went after him saying that he wasn't as conservative as he likes to make himself out to be. And people wanted to call in and everything. And so in our second hour, guys, after I have my next segment here, but in the second hour of the show, we're going to address that. We're going to recap some of the things that I claimed instead.
Because, because I was going to say, because Kev, this is what I've been saying for months now. And I've gotten a lot of slack, not from other people, but friends. And we've talked about it, but I've been saying the exact same thing. And the most recent things I think are really starting to wake people up.
Yep. And so I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts. I'm interested for those that are the defenders that would be opposite of me. I would love to hear what you have to say. And so in the next hour, once I start talking about it, I will put the call number up. It's obviously always scrolling through at the bottom. 309-451-9299 is that number. And so when we get to that, I want to hear what you guys have to say. And if you're a Trump defender and you think that, no, here's what he actually meant, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
And be able to hash that out. Or if you're a person that has changed your mind, if you at one point, even recently, were very, very pro-Trump, but then he said something or didn't say something, and that angered you a little bit, I want to hear from you guys too. All of the perspectives, that's what we're here for. As I always say, this show is not just about me. It's a lot about me. I love me, but it's about you guys too. That was just some playful narcissism.
I did get a new hat yesterday.
Okay, so DeSantis 2024.
Never back down pack. They were at Fall Fest at the GOP table and got a new hat, which is nice.
That's fun. We'll be back here in a few minutes. I'm just checking my time. I got to check my time. People don't realize I always just got to talk about it because I want people to realize that this show, how I want to make it as genuine and authentic as possible. And so that's why everything you see, every letter typed, every graphic made, that's me. Every button pushed on this stuff, every video that comes up on the screen, I handle it. I don't have some fancy producer. I produce other people's shows, like DPB, but that's simply because he's a little adverse to technology. Simply, he's kind of a victim of his age on that one.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
old dog, new tricks. We've heard it, but
and that's one thing I was going to say too is just how I want to on the little break here. I want to emphasize how proud I am of you because I've seen how hard you've worked and how much you've built and learned about the studio and the show and how to market everything. And I mean, it's been so cool to see. I mean, I have every chance I get to talk about the show I do, but I always say, check out Kev. He really has done so much work. And I mean, again, just me making that thumbnail yesterday, I was like, man, this is a lot of work.
I know there was a time where I used to take me 30 minutes to an hour to make one. And now for the most part, I can hammer them out in 10 to 20 minutes, but used to take me a lot longer.
Yeah. I mean, because even with that, when we were going back to talking about that Girlfriends episode, it was 6 of us plus a producer. So it was we were
that was before I learned how to produce.
Right. So we were all in that one little table set. There was 6 of us crammed over there and there was not enough room for it. I mean, I can tell you from a producer's perspective, thank God for Tony, who used to work here at Cities. Thank God for him for putting up with that. Yeah.
Because now knowing what I know about how it is to produce a show, I would have been so stressed out.
Oh my God, that was
the
dumbest thing we could have done.
It was the
absolute dumbest thing we could have. I'm so happy we did because we can look back and laugh at it. And don't get me wrong, there's been times where I've listened to parts of it. And I'm like, man, this is just terrible. This is so bad. Why did I do this? It was the worst decision. But
I'm coming back here in about 15 seconds. But I do want to point out that I have one of my favorite texters in my text line. It's Gina Bender. She asked about a story behind an unofficial theme song, and I don't remember what that is.
I don't know what. Yeah,
Gina, you're gonna have to be more specific in your texts. But thank you for tuning in, and we're about to come back where I have some motivation. And Josh, feel free to tag along with the motivation. But I I've had these thoughts and I need to share them out to the world.
I'm in.
You know, it's so fitting that the last segment that I have opens up with the song Nothing's Gonna Break My Stride. I've got to keep on moving. I know you guys can't hear it on YouTube or anything, but on the radio, thank you guys so much for tuning in. You're listening to Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student out of Central Illinois. And the reason why I say it's so fitting that this segment starts off with Ain't Nothing Gonna Break My Stride, Ain't Nothing Gonna Slow Me Down is because I've more recently started having this be a motivational segment where I talk not necessarily about what we've been talking about for the rest of the hour, but where I just share my youthful wisdom, which I know is oxymoronic, but my youthful wisdom about something that I've either thought about, and a lot of it recently has been about my weight loss, because I've realized so much, and in multiple areas of my life, but significantly with my weight loss, is that if you put your mind to something, you can change it. It is 100% about mindset. 99% of your problems are self-inflicted. The left will tell you that it's all everybody else's fault. But if you truly want to live a virtuous lifestyle, which by no means am I the epitome of virtue, but it's something to strive for, is that you have the power to change things in your life. And I've been saying that a lot, but there's something else that goes with that. I always say, the first step is changing your mindset, and then you can change your actions. You change your mindset, you change your actions. And I think something that goes with that as well, and a mindset to change, is to ask yourself consistently when you are describing yourself, when you're saying something about yourself, is it something you are, or is it something you choose to be? So to take my weight loss, for example, a lot of people say, I am fat. Well, are you fat in the same way that you may be white or a man or a woman? Like it's something that you genuinely cannot change? Or is it something you choose to be? Do you choose to be fat? Do you choose to be unproductive? Do you choose to not work? Or are you unemployed? I am unemployed, or do you choose to be unemployed? All of these things, if you start asking yourself that question and realizing that so many of the problems that we are facing are a choice and something that you yourself can take steps to work on, that's one of the ways that you change your mindset. Are you it? Does it define you, or is it something you can choose? Josh, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, there's been times where, like big thing with me is I recently have been diagnosed with ADHD, and I, have to cope with that. And that's the thing I cope with. But there's times where I sit here and I know I'm supposed to be working and I don't. And do you know what? If something happens the next day and they go, why isn't this done? It's on me. But I need to, it's a conscious mindset to make this choice to work and to make sure that I'm getting what I need to get done before I take the minute and relax. But I mean, obviously there are definitely some things that you cannot control.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot change. Recently there's been a whole, discussion about is 5'8" short or not in a male. Well, I'm 5'8", exactly. I can't control that, guys. If I'm short, I'm short. I can't control that. But I could, if I wanted to, put some more muscle on. Really wanted to. Like you, Kev. I mean, I gotta say, Kev, too. You look fantastic. I'm very proud of you. I mean, you've lost tons of weight. I mean, I think we wear the same size T-shirt now, which is which is interesting, But
I wear mediums, man.
I'm a medium.
Large.
I'm a medium, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I like that exactly, and that's one thing I did dig into my kids. I'm like, okay, you can choose. There are certain things, yes, you can't get around. If your internet goes out, you can't. Okay, whatever. There's issues that are going to happen, but there's things that you can do that if you choose not to, that's on you, and you got to just accept that.
Absolutely. And you hit that on the perfect timing because we are coming to the end of the first hour. Everybody, thank you so much for joining the first hour of Speechless, where we did a lot of reflecting on where this show has come from. And we have some other content for you in the next hour. We got some different current events that we want to cover. And don't worry, you can partake in the show because, as I always say, this show is not just about me. It's about all of us because the left wants us all speechless, but we will not be that way. So don't forget, you can text or call in at 309-451-9299. I'd love to hear from you guys. 309-451-9299 is that number. But do not forget, you have the power to change the issues in your life. Focus on what you can control. Don't relish in what you can't, because you have the power. Change your mindset, change your actions. Everybody, we got more to cover, but we got to take a break here on Speechless. There we go. Okay. So we are obviously now live on everything else. We're out of program on all those. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Jim, you're right here. Luck is usually a result of our choices, 100%. I also forgot, Josh. I think I remember what your mom means by the unofficial theme song. It's yes, she just texted about it.
She just texted, yeah.
That is what it is. The fact that Josh was in a music video,
Yeah.
everybody. I don't know if he allows it to be used in other. I'm getting a caller too. Give me one moment, and then I'm going to send a music video in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. But yes, so for people on the YouTube who can't hear, one of our bumper songs is "Wanna Be That Song" by Brett Elridge. I was in that music video when I was a sophomore in high school. Yeah. And so we've officially, even after I left, Kev has kept it around as kind of I think he just misses me, and if I'm being honest, so he wants to keep me around. But that is still one of the bumper songs is "Wanna Be That Song." So that is an unofficial theme song of ours. I think "Speechless" by Dan and Shay is as well. That's one of our bumper songs, or it was. I don't know if it still is. I think it is. Yeah, we have a couple unofficial theme songs because of that, though. But yeah, this is fun. This is fun. I love being here. Let's see. I'm excited. I gotta say, I'm really excited for the next segment. If we're getting into Trump and how he's not that conservative, because I've been saying this for about 2 years now, and I finally feel a little vindicated. And yeah, I finally feel a little vindicated in that regard. Jim, I'd like to say I'll vote for Trump or DeSantis. Neither are perfect. Neither are perfect, I agree, but there's one who's more perfect than the other, and it's not Trump. Trump is not that perfect. In fact, he is. We can get into that. I try not to slam too much, but we can get into that. But this will be fun. Thank you guys all for being here. I'm excited. 2 years of the show seems weird because it started, like I said, as a podcast in our bedrooms. I mean, during COVID, I had a little, like bedside table and a chair, and that was where I recorded on a laptop with this mic. This mic I still have. It's the same mic. But we recorded over. First, we did Discord, and then Discord stopped working, so then we went to Zoom, and that actually was better. But because you're able to isolate the audio from the video really good. But yeah, that's how it started, and now it's this big show on the radio and on YouTube, and I think Kev's coming up to what's it called? He's coming up to 1,000 subscribers. Just about, yeah. I think he's starting to get close to 1,000 subscribers, which is cool. It's very, very cool to see. Very, very cool to see. I'm excited for that. But yes, I don't know where he went. I think he's still dealing with a caller. So I just gotta talk. Just you and me. Hey everyone, how you doing? Yeah, like my wonderful office. But no, this is fun. Let's see. DG, start the Trump bash again. I'm gone. I won't try to bash him, but I am going to critique him because I think everyone should be critiqued. I'll critique DeSantis when he does something wrong. I'll critique Trump when he does something wrong. I'll critique Biden when he does anything. But if he does something right, I'll give him credit. It's not often, but
I am back.
Welcome back.
DG, I don't want you to leave. I want you to be involved in this conversation because you're the one last week who wanted to call in, you said. And I just want you and I just want you to if you want to, we're going to talk about it. I'm going to recap some of the things that I was talking about last week. And then I want this to be an open and honest conversation.
Yeah.
I want you to be involved in it.
And that's what I was just saying to DG as well. I said we're not going to bash, but we are going to critique because I think everyone should be critiqued. I'll critique DeSantis when he does something wrong. I'll critique Trump when he does something wrong. I'll critique Biden always. I think everyone is up to be critiqued.
But yeah, and that's why, like, if you, I don't know if you actually looked, Josh, when you were having your little date, but like I even have, stories. I have different stories in here on my notes. Vivek is taking a Democrat mega donor.
No shock there.
Yeah, like, and I've been somebody who's been relatively favorable of Vivek. Usually, I try to cover. I am, and this is something. So I'm going to be speaking in about a month at a Republican dinner that we're going to be having locally. And one of the things that I really want to say is, and I don't want to give too much away for anybody that's watching that might be there, but is that when it comes to the Republican Party and it comes to everything, I'm not a really a Republican. I'm a Republican in terms of that's where I mainly vote, but I'm a conservative. I vote with who I think is going to put the policies that I agree with. And so it's not about a party for me. It's not about a single candidate necessarily. It is significantly much more about, are you representing the values that I want from a politician? And Trump has fallen short in terms of some of his most recent interviews. I will be honest about not only my opinion, but also the things that he said. And I'm also going to push, and I'm also going to be honest about polling and everything like that as well. This is one thing. Please just send me a link. Send me a link about how he's a disingenuous creep. Or call in and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk to you
And
too.
all I want is the receipts. I also wanted to find "Wanna Be That Song" and send it because Josh is in a music video. What did you say about that?
I was just saying how I was. That's kind of become one of our unofficial. Is it still a bumper song?
Oh, I pulled it.
Oh, you did? Oh, come on, man.
It. Oh, I pulled it. It didn't fit the vibe of
I
the
don't
show.
care.
It was only an inside joke.
That was for me, and you kept it around for a while because you missed me. And but now I'm on the show more, so I think you missed me less.
Everybody save that link. That link right there is where Josh is in a music video.
Yeah, go see it. It's awesome.
See, but no. Okay, so I'll find it, but there's multiple times of Trump talking about how he's conservative. Like there's multiple times. Trump.
I also yeah. I mean, DG again. I'd love to. I'll be honest, and I've been honest with this. I've been on the DeSantis train since.
Also, he spoke multiple times at CPAC, which is the Conservative Political Action Conference.
Yeah.
So
but yeah, I mean, I would say I've been on DeSantis.
I have to come back on the radio.
Okay, sorry.
And we are back with Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I am your host, Kev Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student out of Central Illinois. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on the radio. If you're not driving and you have a safe way to watch, don't worry. You guys can actually tune in on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble as well. And if you missed any of the show, it will be on all those platforms, and it'll also be on Spotify tomorrow and most of your major podcasting platforms. Everybody, again, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Kev Phares. And in the first hour of the show, I covered a lot about the fact that tomorrow marks the 2-year anniversary of this show. 2 years. It's gone through a lot of twists and turns. It started off, honestly, really bad because I had never hosted a radio show in my life, as well as Josh and one of our former hosts, Eduardo, we had no experience in this. We had done a little bit of podcasting and that was it. And so it's come a long way. And thank you guys so much. And whether this is your first time listening to me, or you've listened for all 100 plus episodes that I've done, thank you, each and every one of you. And if you want to hear any of our recap on the last 2 years, don't worry, you can go check all of those out. Like I said, on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, all those, Spotify, every one of them. But we got some other things to talk about in this next hour. Me and Josh Bender, my good buddy, obviously former consistent show host, now frequent guest, formerly talented, as I like to say. But we're going to be talking about something that I started talking about, and I didn't realize it would cause as much. I knew it would rub some people the wrong way. But at the very end of my show last week, I just wanted to bring up a afterthought, honestly, just about some times where I think Trump has not been as conservative as he in the past has claimed to be. And I have somebody in my comments section right now saying that Trump never ran as a conservative. Well, he spoke at the Conservative Political Action Conference. So insinuating that in some way he would consider himself more of a conservative candidate. I will admit he's a conservative populist, and he pushes populism a lot more, which is something that I also tend to preach, is populism. But there's been a few times recently where it seems like he is not necessarily sticking as much to his firebrand conservative personality and has made some concessions on some areas that he is in the past tried to triumph. One of which I'll play. I'm pulling up the clip now. Is abortion. A lot of people obviously credit him with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which of course was amazing for the country and did happen significantly because he appointed the judges that overturned Roe v. Wade through the Dobbs decision last year. But here is him on a Meet the Press interview in which he was asked about abortion bans. And he just gave an answer that was not necessarily as conservative as a lot of us would like out of Trump as a candidate. And if you disagree, before I play this clip, I want each and every one of you to know, if you disagree with me on any of this, that is perfectly fine. I encourage you to text or call in at 309-451-9299, because we should have these honest discussions about the candidates and the people that could potentially run our country. I think that's perfectly valid. And so let's have an honest discussion, an open discussion. But just a reminder, if you do call in and you're really mad at me and you curse, that's a big no-no. No cursing on this show. The FCC makes sure that I do not. So let's listen to this clip from Meet the Press last week. And again, 309-451-9299 is that number. Here is Trump on Meet the Press discussing abortion.
Mr. President, I want to give voters who are going to be weighing in on this election a very clear sense of where you stand on this.
I think they're all going to like me. I think both sides are going to like me.
What's going to have to
happen is you're going to have to, Kristen, you're asking me a question. What's going to happen is you're going to come up with a number of weeks or months. You're going to come up with a number that's going to make people happy, because 92% of the Democrats don't want to see abortion after a certain period of time.
If a federal ban landed on your desk, if you were reelected, would you sign it at 15?
Are you talking about a complete ban?
A ban at 15 weeks?
Well, people are starting to think of 15 weeks. That seems to be a number that people are talking about right now.
Would you sign that?
I would sit down with both sides and I'd negotiate something, and we'll end up with peace on that issue for the first time in 52 years. I'm not going to say I would or I wouldn't. I mean, DeSantis is willing to sign a 5-week and 6-week ban.
Would you support that? You think that goes too far?
I think what he did is a terrible thing.
So he describes that as a terrible thing, having a abortion bans at 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks. And obviously that's not quite as pro-life, but that's not the only thing I want to focus on when it comes into that clip. He also says people are going to like me, which seems really interesting. And this just is trying to notice a change because I have never considered Trump to be one who cares much about whether or not people like him.
No.
And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think throughout 2016, his whole thing was they don't like me and I don't care. And I loved that. Like, I think that was very cool. That was what was so fun about him, was he didn't care. He just wanted to get the job done. But then recently, I definitely noticed a shift to, well, I want people are going to like me, both sides are going to like me. And you know what? If people like him, great. If people don't like him, great. I mean, that's your opinion, but, and this is where I like where DeSantis speaks on it, because he always says, my job isn't to be liked. My job is to get the job done. And I think that's really what it comes down to. I mean, that's the job. The job is the job that you were elected for. Get it done. And if that means people don't like you for it, cool. That's okay. I guarantee people didn't like what some things that other presidents were doing, but they got the job done.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then going back to what he says at the end is, and this is where it makes it difficult for me, because I've wondered for a while how pro-life Trump genuinely is. A lot of his other actions in his life would lead me to believe that he is not necessarily personally the most pro-life person, but he was pushing pro-life policy at one point and pro-life rhetoric because he was supported by people that were very, very ardently pro-life, obviously controlled a significant level of the evangelical vote. Excuse me. And so it just makes me question a lot about this. I think that what was that? Sorry, I miss my brain goes blank sometimes. No, but I think it's very telling. I wonder if he is going against the DeSantis idea on abortion and legislation, or if it's for the purpose of simply going against or being against DeSantis, period. Does that make sense?
I think he's trying to already run a general election campaign because he thinks he's already won. And I get the strategy. I do. I would disagree with it, but I get the strategy because he is what, if you look at polls, he is really far ahead. So he believes he's the candidate. He believes he's the guy. So he's already trying to pull this general. I get it. I totally get it. But I think he's underestimating that this election isn't over. The general or the primary is not over. If you were to trust polls, I don't always trust polls the most, but if you trust polls, DeSantis is getting a hefty lead in Iowa. He's starting to catch up. It's a caucus system, and I think that is going to be huge for him because for a lot of people, DeSantis is everyone's number 2. So if their candidate doesn't win, then okay, they go to the second guy. Well, then DeSantis is going to get a lot. So I think that's actually going to help a lot. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting, and I agree. I've always I think Trump did some really, really good, but I think he's definitely trying to pull this general election campaign.
Absolutely. And one thing I wanted to point out when it comes to polls, because while I too have also been heavily critical of polls, it actually came out today in an ABC News and Washington Post conglomerate poll that if in a current head-to-head matchup between Trump and Biden, if it were held today, Trump leads Biden by almost 10 points, 51-42 in a head-to-head matchup.
Right.
Which is absolutely fascinating to see come out of ABC and the Washington Post.
Yeah.
According to the Daily Wire, the Post had a write-up next to the poll that said, this shows Biden trailing Trump by 10 percentage points at this early stage in the election cycle. Although the sizable margin of Trump's lead in this survey is significantly at odds with other public polls, the difference between this poll and others, as well as the unusual makeup of Trump's and Biden's coalitions in this survey, suggests it is probably an outlier. So they're even trying to write off the if you listen to that, they're trying to say, well, this is just
right.
Well, it's not actually something we should trust, even though it came from you.
Yeah, which I think was fascinating when they're like, well, our polling shows this is what's happening, but we can't trust our own polling. Why'd you put it out? Why did you even put it out then? Like, I don't understand why you even put it out. That's so funny to me. Yeah, I mean, and that poll is pretty interesting, I think, overall.
Yeah. And so because like here's the thing is I know we bring in DeSantis only because that's who Trump brings in when having this conversation, but I want to be clear when what I'm talking about is the level of conservatism from a candidate.
Yes.
The level of a conservatism from a candidate, because I am pushing a conservative message, and because that's what I believe. But I do have a caller on the line. We're going to bring this caller on right now. I assume it's probably the person that has been in my comment section, which is perfectly fine. DG, is that you?
Yes, this is me.
How's it going? Okay, so
Hey,
you obviously seem, at least based on your comments, you seem like you're not very happy with our take on what we're discussing.
I'm ticked off because you don't know how just in a block you are. You're just like, are you aware of a guy named Victor Nieves?
I can't say that I am.
Okay, Victor Nieves is just like you. He's a young conservative. He's maybe 2 years older than you.
Oh, is he the one out of Missouri? Is he the one out of Missouri?
Yeah, that's him. Yes, that's him. Yep. And you guys don't. You guys, again, you don't think for yourselves. You're just in this conservative little blinder block, and it's really depressing because when I was your age, you know what? I thought for myself. I was raised directly conservative. I was raised Pentecostal Christian. But when I got 20 years old, I started to think for myself, and I found out that Jesus was real, and I found out that I do embrace conservative values, but I don't follow a block. And all the things you're saying about Trump is this total BS and nitpicking because you're not putting the whole thing in perspective. First of all, as it relates to abortion, Trump was raised primarily liberal. He's like Moses that came out of Egypt. They all loved him in Hollywood. He was loved in business, but now he's running when Trump decided to run for this nation, when you go back and you see him talking to Oprah years before, he ran primarily as a populist and a patriot, and his selling point was his business acumen to get America back where it should have been financially to make it number one. That's where the whole MAGA movement became from. Then he embraced Judeo-Christian values and he embraced Christianity later, but that's not what he ran on. And every doggone time, if you would dare stand up and say that Trump is not really pro-life, you're a bunch. That is the most disgusting thing in the world. If it were not for him, I'm gonna flat say, I am in my 50s. I was a kid when Roe v. versus Wade was put into action, and I never thought that I would live to see it overturned. I listened to Republican political pundits for decades giving lip service to Roe. Trump came in, he got the job done. So you would be, I'm going to try not to call you names, but I really love you to death. But just like Victor Nieves, you get on my daggone nerves because you're just so stereotypical and you're in that one little block.
Okay.
And if somebody's
can I address a few things? You've gone through a lot of different things and we are coming a little close to a break, but I want to address a few of the things that you said. First off, and I want a pretty quick answer for this one, but you said that I don't think for myself. Everything that I lay out is based on evidence. I lay out my evidence of what I'm saying. Who is thinking
it's all nitpick because again, you are thinking like a conservative pundit. You never think outside the box. Because all a conservative does is just like I get pissed about Victor Nieves. You take your white glove and you run it across someone's life, just like Christians do. You look for sin, or you look for something that isn't quite as conservative.
When he says, when he says in the interview that it is terrible that DeSantis put in a 5 to 6 week abortion ban, that is bad.
Okay, and again, there's nothing wrong with that considering where he's come from. And the bottom line is what you just don't get because you got to get out of your little conservative box and you have to talk to people that are outside of this that can gradually be brought in. The majority of people in the world, I'm not talking about scientists like we talked about before, the majority of everyday people are really confused about when life begins. Even Christians, the evangelical church as a whole did not celebrate the overturning of Roe v. versus Wade. And obviously in the Bible, life begins at conception. And as you said, science has proven that too. But the average person, if you ask them, when do you think life actually becomes when a baby actually becomes a life, they don't know. So Trump is a bit confused on that too. But the bottom line is, despite the fact that he doesn't equal up to your incredibly super perfect standards, he got the job done. And for you to sit here and actually question his pro-life acumen is disgusting, because you can say that he's a bit.
You call it disgusting, and here's the thing, DG. The thing is you just keep saying that me having an opinion on this that is other than yours. That is other than yours. DG, I don't think
DG, man.
You
can have an opinion, but what you should do is look at a person from where they've come from to where they are now. It's just like, do you call yourself a Christian? Yes or no?
I'm a
Are
Catholic.
You born again Christian? But do you follow Jesus Christ? Do you believe in redemption?
Yes.
Okay, when Christ redeems somebody, in most cases, that you don't lean down, say a prayer, and go, "Oh Lord, come into my life, forgive me my sin." You get up, you're perfect. No, you change over time. Your perspective change over time. I can tell you, when I was your age, I'm so different as far as my morals and the character and the things that I do.
I have no doubt
because of Christ.
I have to wrap this up a little bit because I have to take a break on the radio, DG. So I have to wrap this up a little bit. And I just like to be clear with all of this. I am not judging Trump the man. I am judging Trump the candidate. And I am discussing.
Okay, that again, you're not
looking.
And again, you're not. What you want is unrealistic. No one in politics is going to be a perfect conservative. You are the most naive person in the world if you think that.
I don't think anything.
Yes, you do. You sat there and
DG, I got to take a break, and I really appreciate your disagreement. You're getting a little loud, and I get it. Obviously, I could be a bit controversial, but I have to take a break on the radio. DG, I'm sorry I had to cut you off on the line right now because I have to take a break on the radio. Everybody, we'll be right back. I hope that you're enjoying this fiery debate on Speechless. God bless you. God bless America. We'll be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond.
I don't want to hear this shit anymore. It pisses me
DG,
off.
okay, you're back. You're now just on the live stream. But again,
I don't wanna
I'm
hear
not.
this shit anymore. DG. Okay.
That's you turn
Okay,
me down.
I'm gonna tell you. All I'm trying to say is give the man a break. Okay, he
DG,
was raised a liberal. Okay, he was not raised a Christian. I don't know if his parents were. He just got involved in the Christianity and everything. The bottom line with Trump, God is not looking at Trump going, "Oh my God, you're not perfect." God called Trump to run this nation. There was a prophet who prophesied that Trump would come up. His name was Kim Clement. You probably don't know him. He's dead now. But like 5 or 6 years before Trump ever even entered the arena, Kim Clement said that Donald Trump would be raised up to run this nation. He would serve 2 terms. He didn't say consecutive. He even said that Trump they would impeach him twice. And this was 5 years before it happened. Trump said yes to God, which was most people don't do. He stood in the gap. He did what he was supposed to do. God's not looking at him there as his perfect. And even as a Catholic, you know the story of St. Paul, do you not?
Yes,
Paul, who was Saul of Tarsus, guess what? Everyone when he got struck on the Damascus road and was blinded, and God sent him to Peter and the rest of them to wash his eyes to get his sight back. They never trusted him. Okay, they said we can't trust him to be a Christian. He's been killing Christians and persecuting us years. God says no, he's your brother now. Treat him as such. Trump was called just like that out of Egypt to run this nation, and he's done a great job at it. He's not perfect, and for you to sit up there and put your little 20-year-old finger on him, talking about,
hey, I am
he's not
23,
conservative here,
thank you.
he's not conservative there, but then you sit there, you look at a miserable creep like Mike Pence and say that he's a better Christian, when Mike Pence has backstabbed that man in the back every doggone chance he's had. Okay?
Yeah.
Again, you're naive. You gotta look outside the box.
I talk about my favorably and disfavorably about pretty much every candidate. I don't know any candidate in the race that, and obviously I'm a little bit more favorable to at least one. But
and who's that?
Yeah, I've been honest. If the election were held today, I would vote for Ron DeSantis. However, I think that
because you're not looking into that man. That man is nothing but a puppet of his handlers. He's showing it from the beginning.
Give me an article. Give me statistics.
He's a puppet. All you gotta do is look into the people that are covered. Look into the people that are reporting, that are supporting him. And anybody, let me ask you one thing really quick. Do you believe there was any fraud in the 2016 election?
The
2020 election. Was there any fraud in it?
Yes, I believe there's been fraud in pretty much every American election.
Do you believe what DeSantis said? DeSantis said this. He said the person who puts their hand on the Bible on January 6th, no matter what, that is the president. Do you believe that statement or not? And do you know what that statement even means?
I do agree with that statement. Yes.
It's also January 20th.
It's a dog whistle saying that he is going to go with the status quo, and he's never going to say that there's fraud in the election. And anybody who looked at the 2020 election, you are a fool if you sit there and think there was no fraud in this election. They had thousands of pages of affidavits. You could have just looked on Facebook with all of the Republican poll watchers who were thrown out of their places based on, there's not enough room because of COVID. When they blocked up windows.
Hey,
everything they did in Pennsylvania.
We got to wrap this up because I got to get back on the air. So
get back on the air. But the bottom line is, you're not perfect. Trump is not perfect, especially if you call yourself a Christian. Give the man some grace. And look outside of your little box of conservatives, because, kiddo, you are not going to get it. If you think DeSantis is somebody that you can respect as a conservative,
I got to cut you off. I got to get back on the radio right now. And we are back with Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. If you were listening in the last segment, you may have heard, and if you're listening online as well, that we had quite a fiery conversation with a commenter and frequent viewer and listener on the show, who I do appreciate very much, DG, who really laid into me about a lot of things with Trump. And here's the thing, and I know Josh has some opinions on this as well, and I'll let him share his. And DG, I like I said, I appreciate your passion and I appreciate you calling in. I am honest, and he asked me to give Trump a bunch more grace when it comes to And I see we're already coming back to another break. I went very long in my first segment of this hour. So I know timing's going to get messed up and everything. But guys, don't worry. We're going to cover this even more about Trump and everything. He asked me to give Trump more grace. I look at things that every single candidate says, the way they run their campaigns and the things that are in the media about them. And I try to be honest with myself and with you about what I think about each one. I am going for the candidate that seems to be the most conservative, whether that becomes by election day, and who will support the most conservative policy by election day. I think Trump has sold himself significantly as a conservative since 2016, and I don't think he has been living up to that. I also think that there are other candidates that have not been living up to that in several different ways, and I've talked about that on this show. I am judging them as a candidate. Them personally, it's not really, I think that much more of what I will vote for is who they are as a candidate.
Yep.
And so that's what matters to me, and what the record that they have shown in their past and what they are saying today. Obviously, words are cheap, actions are much more expensive, but we don't know their actions once they get into office. And so we're going to see. We're going to see. But I'm going to continually be honest with myself and be honest with you about what I see in a candidate, the graces and the downfalls, every part of it. But I got to take another break here. Sorry, guys, it was so short. But we'll be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Okay. I know that was short, guys. We'll keep talking, obviously, here. I know I got a major heckler in the comments that's not a DG. It's somebody that actually their opinion matters. I'll just say, Larry in the chat, your opinion literally means nothing.
Yeah, I love you're saying I'm parent subsidized. I have my own place. Like, this place is mine. I work myself. I have a 2-bedroom place to myself. This is literally I'm providing for myself. So I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, your opinion literally matters. Not a single litany.
It's not worth going on anymore. DG, again, you're probably already out of here, but I appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, I do. DG,
but I got to get you to understand how radio works, man. Like, your call was great. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of my listeners probably agreed with some of the things that you had to say, even more than me, which is fine. And that's what I love. I mean, this show is about having honest conversation about different things. When it comes to radio, I got times that I got to hit. And so when I say I got to wrap it up, that doesn't mean that we're going to have another minute. That means, like, you got 2 more sentences. To anybody out there, if you want to call in 309-451-9299, that's the number. I'll put it on the screen. If I say I got to wrap something up, that means you got finish your sentence, maybe one more after that, and then we're done.
Yeah.
And then I got to wrap it up. Yeah. Because that's just how it works. What are your thoughts, Josh, on everything that we just
I mean, DG, listen, DG, I got to say, I respect the passion. I respect you as a person. I think you seem, I mean, honestly, you seem like a wonderful person. I will disagree majorly. I got
to go grab a water real quick.
That's fine. Yeah, go ahead. Right back. I will disagree majorly. I think that if you want to look at, I don't want to give Trump grace. We shouldn't, because he was president before. I'm going to look at what he did and what he didn't do. I'm going to look at what he says now, what he says. I think Trump, the candidate, is a wonderful, usually pretty good. Trump, the president, I think he did phenomenal. I think he did a really good job. Do I want him again? No, I don't. I'll be completely honest. I mean, I'll sit here and say I'm sitting here with 2 DeSantis hats. I mean, I don't, I don't hide that by any means. You say he's a disingenuous creep. I want to see that. I want to see where your evidence is. And I think Jim asked a couple of good questions you never once answered, which was, if it came down to it, if DeSantis were the nominee, I know you don't think it'll happen, but let's just say it does. If DeSantis is the nominee and he's facing Biden, what are you going to do? Are you going to vote for DeSantis, or are you not? Because if you stay home and you don't vote for him, then you're not helping anyone. You got to be able to vote for him. So,
yep.
So that's where I'm at.
Jim is just coming in with all the best things today. He says, Larry, shut up. Good call. Absolutely.
Yeah, great call.
I love you, Jim. Platonically.
Jim is great.
Clear.
Jim is great. Man, that was fun. That's fun. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't. I mean, I think these are conversations that we've had, at least privately, for what?
Jim goes, oops, thought I took that comment.
No, keep it up, Jim.
It up.
It's good. Keep it up, Jim.
It's
true. It's true. When irrelevant people comment, we should just tell them to shut up.
Yeah. I'm always down to take criticism, as I just showed.
Yeah.
I'm always down to take criticism, but if the criticism is unfounded, unrelated, and like you said, irrelevant, then you're a moron, and I don't want to hear from you.
Valid criticism is good.
I'll always say, if you don't like it, tell me why, or don't listen. Tell me why, or don't listen.
I like the quote. If you have a problem with me, text me. If you can't text me because you don't have my number, your opinion doesn't matter. I think it's great.
Absolutely. All right. I got another thing I'm going to talk about in the next segment, and I just think it's really interesting. And we're gonna break it down, and we're gonna go through some of these stories.
All right, cool.
This is gonna be fun. Hey, and welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student out of Central Illinois. Why do I say Central Illinois? You're listening on the radio in Central Illinois. Why am I saying it? Because we are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, where we're getting these messages and having these conversations with people across the United States, across the world. And if you want to be involved in this conversation, do not worry. You can call or text in at 309-451-9299. Again, that number is 309-451-9299. Text or call in. Obviously, in the last two segments, I was responding, talking about fiery call that we had from one of my commenters, DG. Always appreciate him giving me a lot of criticism for the fact that I have been honest with my opinions about Trump and how I think that there's some things to look at that might not make him. If you're an ideologue like I am, meaning that you care much more about ideology than almost anything else in terms of a candidate, then you might have a disagreement because you might have whatever adherence to Trump you might have. I can be a little bit more critical because I don't think that he is as conservative as others have pushed in the media, on social media, and I just think that should be heard. But if you want to talk about that, I'll keep that conversation ongoing consistently until the primary. You can always text or call in at 309-451-9299 to talk about that. But in this segment, I want to talk about something that's really interesting. I talked a few weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, about a report that came out over the summer showing that high school aged men right now are more conservative than ever, pretty much. High school aged men about 18 years old, those that are coming into the voting block for 2024, young men are more conservative now than ever. Youth, period, are very, very politically involved today, now more than I would argue in almost ever in history. Maybe the 70s is the only time that could be comparable, in the Vietnam War era. But while men are trending more conservative, women are trending much more liberal. And there's a story that came out this week that should concern each and every one of us, in my opinion. Out of the Daily Wire, Taylor Swift prompts record-breaking voter registration signups with an Instagram post. Pop star Taylor Swift inspired a record-breaking number of fans to register to vote due to an Instagram post. Vote.org told Insider that they had their largest national voter registration day since 2020 on Tuesday, and credit the success in part to Swift's messaging. On her Instagram, she said, "Are you registered to vote yet? I've been so lucky to see so many of you guys at my U.S. shows recently. I've heard you raise your voices, and I know how powerful they are. Make sure you are ready to use them in elections this year." And so obviously pushed people to register to vote. Then apparently 270, or I'm sorry, that was the number of followers. Vote.org noted that over 35,000 people registered to vote, and 157,000 eligible voters visited the site on Tuesday, representing almost 25% jump in total registrations and a 115% increase among 18-year-olds compared to last year, meaning that it would make sense to attribute the uptick in voter registrations to Taylor Swift's following. Why do I say earlier that this is something that we should be worrisome about? Is because, well, if people are listening to Taylor Swift on whether or not they should register to vote, well, they might also be listening to the political messaging she has also pushed as well. In the past, Taylor Swift has been very, very open about her support for the Alphabet Mafia Pride community. And she is also having entire songs that are basically written about them. She has also, in the past, condemned and told people deliberately not to vote for Senator Marsha Blackburn out of Tennessee. And so she is not a very conservative influence, and is obviously having a level of political influence. Josh, what are your thoughts, especially as a molder of the scarily a molder of the youth mind as a teacher in Nevada?
Well, it's funny because it's like I have a couple of students who are very Taylor Swift obsessed and everything, and I always like to poke fun because I'm like, why are you obsessed with like a subpar artist at best?
Sellout. I will always call Taylor Swift a sellout. Yeah. And that's not even a hit on her. I mean, she made a smart decision financially to move to pop with a broader base at the time she did. But she was a great country artist that sold out for pop music, and I'll never back down from that thought. Yeah. But keep going with your thoughts. I should make that clear.
But they actually, I had a student talk about this a little bit. She was like, "Oh, did you hear about this?" I'm like, I didn't know, and she kind of told me everything, and I'm like, that's really interesting, And she was like, "Could Taylor Swift run for president?" I said, I mean, I don't know how old she is. Is she 35? And I don't know. I still don't know how old she is. And I'm
33
like,
right now.
Okay.
I think oh no, it wouldn't make sense. Beyonce is one that will be old enough at the time of, I believe Beyonce is turning 36. I only know this because I've been talking about this in a political class that I'm in. I'm in a campaign politics class.
Gotcha.
We're talking about fake people who could run for president. And Beyonce will be turning 36, like right after the election, meaning that she could run for president the next. But keep going with Taylor Swift.
But anyway, so she's like, well, I was like, I mean, if she's 35, then I mean, she could in theory. She's like, would she win? I said, no. I said because most of her voters are under 18, or like most of her fans are under 18. Like that's one. But I do think it's interesting now, and I don't want to call this a Donald Trump effect because I mean, let's be real. I mean, because Ronald Reagan was the first who was a celebrity turned politician.
Yeah.
But we are seeing now that there is a uptick of celebrities turning politicians, and celebrities who just think their opinions are so relevant to literally everything in the world. And I always look back and go to Ricky Gervais at the Golden Globes, which is basically that your opinions mean nothing. I think his exact words were, some of you guys have spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg, which I think is hilarious. He's like, but you know nothing about the common people. So when you get up here, think your fans, think your agent, think your God, and F off. Like I don't care what celebrities have to say. I just really don't.
Well, and I know that for you, but again, it concerns me because obviously young people are listening. Well, because here's the other things I know. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I do know that the majority of people say that they get their news from social media. I know that is most of where people get news from now.
Yep.
And who do they interact with on social media? Well, like Taylor Swift, it's celebrities. They oftentimes interact with celebrities. And while some people follow people that have become kind of political celebrities, like you have your Ben Shapiro's, your Charlie Kirks, they're also following people, like some of them are also following people like Taylor Swift or LeBron James, who are people like you insinuated are relatively uneducated on the issues, or at least should not be trusted in any way as experts on these issues. As Ann Coulter would say to, or maybe it was Laura Ingraham to LeBron James, please just shut up and dribble. But instead, these people have followings, and they're obviously being listened to on political issues.
Right.
What are we to do about a younger generation? I mean, even part of our generation that takes seriously unserious political opinions, and will likely vote with them in mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that we know that there's hidden conservatives in Hollywood. They got to come out and say it. I mean, they need to come out and say it. I think we're actually starting to see a flip. Like I remember there was, and this is for, I mean, some of the older audience probably isn't going to understand what this means, but there was an esports player, a Call of Duty professional Warzone player.
Mm-hmm.
And when stuff was going on in California, where there was the parents that were fighting over the stuff going on in schools, he said, why don't we just leave kids alone? And Call of Duty pulled his bundle that you could buy. Like they pulled his sponsorship. They pulled everything. And a bunch of other big Call of Duty streamers said, if you're going to pull him, pull mine too. And literally every single person pulled out of Call of Duty. Well, that's a big audience there. I mean, that is a big audience of people who suddenly said, wait, this might not be right. So I think we are starting to see that there is some common sense prevailing over some issues. I mean, obviously,
but once again, here's the thing, and so because a big thing that I'm kind of talking about here too. Well, it's the underlying part of it, but I introed with the idea that men are trending conservative. Young men are trending conservative. Yeah. Young women are not. Young women listen to Taylor Swift. Young men play Call of Duty. Right. Generally, speaking,
that's fair.
Generally speaking, because another one that I hear about is, okay, well, Bud Light, the pendulum swinging because Bud Light hurt, right?
Right.
But the thing is again, who are the primary consumers of beer? It's not by much. It's actually less than the margin is less than you'd assume, but it's still over 50% of beer drinkers are men. And so we have the flip coming from men, but we still have young women that are listening to people like Taylor Swift. And that's really, I guess we're making that the forefront of the conversation. How do we convince young women? I think many young women have been drawn in by the enticing narratives of one, I think the lesser of the two being the lack of any type of responsibility for your actions, whether that be the sexual revolution and saying that, well, you need to be doing this as a protest to men, you need to be promiscuous as a protest to men. Along with the ideas of, well, nothing's your fault because you're oppressed by men. And then finally, the biggest one, I believe, is the lies regarding abortion, saying that you need to have this right. Otherwise, men will have control over your bodies.
Yeah.
How do we counter those narratives, especially? And I feel like a lot of it would start in the classroom to an extent.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I think the big thing is too, as much as I love me some Ben Shapiro and his, facts don't care about your feelings, which of course is true. And I've always said this, that's true. But you do need to take feelings into account, and you need to understand feelings. And I mean, and statistically, women are more emotional than men. We just know this. So we need to be able to play into emotion, understand, and get to this. Well, why do you think that? What are you feeling? So then, because once you understand how someone's feeling, you can then dig into the facts with them. But if you come from a basis of here's the facts, but they're going off something, but they're going off that's how I feel, you're never going to meet. You have to have some sort of common ground. So figuring out why they're feeling the way they're feeling is half the battle.
And I feel like the thing that's kind of hard about that, because while I don't necessarily disagree with that assessment, I think the reason why so many men, and this just shows the dichotomy of men and women, so many men have been drawn to conservatism, and why we have young men that are drawn to it is because of the facts don't care about your feelings rhetoric. I'll tell you, that's one thing that definitely drew me in was, I don't care necessarily how you feel. I don't care about, oh my gosh, like this statistic offends you. I don't really care, because it's the truth, and the truth is what matters. And that's one thing that's drawn me in. It's one thing that's kept me in is objective truths that should not be changed. But in feelings, and so we're coming up against a break here, and I guess we can end the show out with this in the next segment too. But how do we push a feelings message while also not detracting from what I think has pushed so many men? Maybe there's a different reason why men have come in. Do you think there's a different reason, or could you see my analysis?
I think your analysis is partially correct, but I also think it goes into what we were talking about earlier with the idea that a lot of young men kind of felt like they had nowhere to go. And I call this the Andrew Tate effect, because I think they turn to the wrong actors at times, like an Andrew Tate, where some of them are finding people such as Shapiro, Knowles, Walsh, Peterson, and using that for the better, where you can definitely find dangerous people, but a lot of them are finding these good voices.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got to take a break here real quick on the radio, but we'll still be on our live streams, everybody. If you're listening on the radio, don't forget to listen to our advertisers. They support this movement. They support us, and they really appreciate And they obviously, I would really appreciate it if you guys would check them out, because if it were not for them, if we're not for you listening, then I wouldn't be here right now. So thank you guys so much. You could also check me out on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Please, please, please do each and every one of those things. We'll be right back though on the radio with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Okie dokie. We are obviously still live here. I see the chat is just blowing up. Larry, go make a sandwich.
Hey, Jim, honey wheat sounds delicious.
Honey wheat does sound delicious.
My favorite type of bread.
And so, nope, my shirt is blue, Larry.
Mine's blue. It doesn't look like, it looks kind of black in this light.
Yeah, it does, but Larry might want to get your eyes checked. But no, I think this is really, I think it's really interesting. I thought that Taylor Swift one really jumped out to me. I was like, because it's been really hitting with me, because I felt like so many conservative commentators that I saw were focusing on, oh, well, young 18-year-old men, like they're voting conservative. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but if you look at the women one,
yeah,
it's trending down. And then, and this is a story, obviously many people don't know this, and I can say these words off air, and I am off air. But so I was out tabling with Turning Point last week and just talking to people about the Constitution. It's something that we do consistently. Yep. I'll videotape it sometime and put a YouTube video out about it. But I had a young man come up to me. He was not dressed particularly well, I will say that. I was like pajama flannel pants and like a hoodie. And he comes up and he doesn't really necessarily seem curious about what we actually believe in. He seemed kind of like a troll in person. Yeah. But he says to us, and he goes, I can't be seen talking to you that long. Otherwise, I might get blacklisted by some of those liberal bad bitches.
Oh yeah.
Real thing he said to me. That is a real thing he said to me.
That's so funny.
And so what I mean by that is, especially when we have a world right now, which I believe women have vast control over the sexual marketplace. And men are the fuelers of the value in the sexual marketplace. I mean, just look at the way that OnlyFans, Pornhub, everything like that thrives. You might have men that will begin to subscribe to more liberal ideology simply because of like what that kid said was really funny, simply because they believe it will push them into some way of getting women.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about that, how dating as a conservative in college was really tough, because it was almost like that thing, you like you had to break it to them, you know, like you having a good time, you're like, hey, I got to break this to you. I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican. It was like, and like
still something I have to do.
Yeah,
I
mean,
yo, by the way, I actually am like kind of a small time YouTuber where I talk about things that really piss a lot of people off.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it was like, it's a tough thing to like.
Literally, okay, not even kidding. I was on a dating app and I started having this conversation with somebody like 2 weeks ago. And literally she goes, it's okay, people can change. I go, people can.
You're not.
This one won't. Like,
yeah. No, literally.
At least not on that one. And so I thought it was really funny. Man,
I was gonna say, it's cool seeing blatant anti-Semitism in your comments right now with
apparently.
With Larry.
Here's the only one, because I don't like trying to give that much of a platform to hecklers, especially when they're so irrelevant. But this was one thing. If you ever actually listen to what I say, leftists are a part of the problem. Actually, I consistently say, however, that the elite, the overall, not to get communist on here, but the bourgeoisie, meaning like your Mitch McConnells, your Dianne Feinsteins, your Nancy Pelosi's, your Joe Bidens, your BlackRocks, your Vanguards, the ones that work in tandem to push oftentimes leftist policy, but not even just that. It's usually self-advancing policy and thus destructive policy to society. Those are the ones I believe are the enemy. While a lot of it is leftist policy, your average snow cone colored hair MFer on the side of the road that's just that like shoves her vag in people's faces simply because she's been brainwashed into believing that that's somehow empowering. That's not my enemy. I could give less of a crap.
Oh, that got me.
It's the people that are funding that girl's delusion. That's who's the enemy. And I'm telling you, there are people that are conservatives that are on that same, when I put air quotes deliberately, that are on that same plane because they accept money from Vanguard and BlackRock, or they lobby with the leftists that are pushing and the elite leftists that are up there pushing that kind of rhetoric. So leftists and leftists aren't the enemy. It's leftist policy, but it's not even just left. It's leftist policy that's pushed by the elite. And so if you want to put a person, the thing in the ether that I'm against, I love your sister. The thing in the ether that's the enemy is the leftist policy, but the actual enemy are the people pushing it, and that's just elites in power, elites with wealth.
There's a reason that the song "Richmond North of Richmond" became so popular. It's because it was calling out, and I like that. He made it clear. I'm not either side. I'm calling out both sides.
Absolutely. Okay, I got to come back here.
Yes.
Nothing's going to break my stride, not even Larry. I'm going to keep on moving, everybody. I mean, you don't know who Larry is, but if you would if you were tuning in on YouTube right now, which is something you can do. But for everybody, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student. And thank you guys so much for tuning in for the last 2 hours. I'm live every Sunday from 3 to 5, live just about every Sunday, but obviously there's a few times where I miss, but this Sunday was very special because tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of this show being on Cities 92.9. And so I want to give a big thank you to everybody out there whether this is your first time listening or if you've been listening for the last 2 years. And if you have been listening to the last 2 years, I'm sorry for the first few episodes. They probably weren't very good. But nowadays we are back and I think I've gotten better. Still not an expert, 10,000 hours to become an expert in something. And when it comes to podcasting and radio, I'm probably only at a few hundred, maybe a few thousand at best. But today I brought on my good buddy, Josh Bender, and we've been talking about a lot of different things under the sun. Obviously reflecting on the last 2 years, as well as some different hot topics that have been happening across America. We had other ones that we were maybe going to get to, but let's take these last 3 minutes here. Josh, what do you think has been one of the most rewarding parts about podcasting, radio hosting, everything like that?
I think a big thing was the ability to share perspective and share and hear different perspective. I think there's been times, you, me, and Ed have gotten into it, or just you and me have gotten into it, and I think that's so great to be able to share that we're not just this one-headed entity. There are so many different arms and thoughts within the movement, and we're going to disagree with each other. But at the end of the day, we're going to be respectful. We're going to be nice. We're going to have civil discourse, to plug our old podcast here. But we're gonna walk away from the end going, we still love each other. We're still good friends. We're still best friends. We're not going to hate each other because we have a little difference of opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's been one of the most interesting things for me when I look back again on these last 2 years of the show. I've been able to meet some incredible people. Not only yes, I've been when I've been going to try to meet people for interviews and such. I've been able to meet presidential candidates. I've been able to meet pundits, some incredibly influential people. I've been able to interview Riley Gaines. It was an amazing time talking to her. But I've also been able to meet average activists, people that are in their teens or early 20s that are fighting and are much more well-read and intelligent than some of the bigger people I have met as well. And it's been really rewarding to understand the idea that every single person has a story. Every single person you meet. And some of them might be really bad at telling it. They might be boring. They might be mundane. But they have a story and it could still be interesting. And every story is worth listening to. Even Larry in the comments. Larry, you're a deeply troubled man. Deeply, deeply troubled. But you definitely have a story and it's worth listening to. Everybody you meet has a story that's worth listening to. My listeners, each and every one of you has a story that's worth listening to. That's why I always encourage you to text or call in at 309-451-9299. But not today because we got to end out the show here. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week from 3 to 5, where I'll take your calls at 309-451-9299. Thank you so much for tuning in this week, the 2-year anniversary special of Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Josh, you got 5 seconds. You want to say goodbye?
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Until next week, we'll be back. Okie dokie. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Josh, any final words now that you have a little bit more time here on the live stream?
Yeah, I would say just thank you, everyone who's just tuned in the last 2 years and given us kind of a crazy opportunity that we shouldn't have. I mean, it's to be frank with you all. Kev, congrats on building the show up to what it is today. I'm always happy I can jump in and bask in your glory. Just kind of latch on. But,
you have your own glory. It just comes from a bunch of teenagers in a classroom.
Well, yeah, but no, I'm very glad I could jump on.
And the job you do is much more important than mine. So
well, in your words, not mine. I'm going to clip that to make sure I always remember that. So
yeah, you can listen to it when you go to bed at night. Well, everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning in, especially you, Larry. God bless you. God bless every single person who in some way watches, listens, comments, anything like that. This show has been on the air on Cities for 2 years. But I can tell you it's going to be on Cities, but it'll be on YouTube and everything for much longer. So don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ring those notification bell. Ring that notification bell. I can say it. Put it to all because, ScrewTube likes to try to keep me down. Share this video with your friends. Get these messages out to other people. Thank you guys so much. We'll be back next time with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond.